video, we're going to talk about why I became a psych nurse. This is a question I received, so I just feel like we can do these like cool videos where we just have like a little chit chat. So yeah, the reason I decided to become a psych nurse, and I know that this is not super common in nursing school, is because I used to work in a psych unit as a mental health counselor, and I really liked it, and that was the first time I realized I wanted to go to nursing school because I learned all about psych nurses and psych NPs, and I'm like, this is what I love. So that's kind of how it started, but then you're probably wondering, well, how did you become a mental health counselor or psychiatric counselor? So I would say since I was little, I've always been really interested in, I wouldn't necessarily say like mental illness, but I've been interested in like mental health and well-being and wellness. So I would always read books about like mindfulness or like Buddha or law of attraction, like all of those types of things. So I was very in that like mental well-being space. And I originally thought that I might want to go work in a hospital, like in medicine and things like that. But then I went to college and I just like wasn't sure if I wanted to go into medicine. So I started working in research, and I realized that research, it wasn't clinical research, it was like sit behind a desk research. Really wasn't my thing because I was still craving that like patient interaction. And I had done a lot of volunteer work in high school and things like that. So I had that interaction in the past, like volunteering at hospitals, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I was like kind of thinking of what types of jobs I would want when I realized that research just wasn't my thing. And I was reading like all these books on, psych topics, and I was like, maybe like that's where I'm supposed to be. Like I think too, as everyone in this world, like we've all had experiences probably with people that have had mental diagnoses, like addiction's fairly common. I would say anyone that's my age definitely went to high school with people who struggle with addiction or maybe in their families. I think things like schizophrenia and bipolar aren't like as common. So like I hadn't really seen a ton of that before. But I just knew that like mental well-being was like calling me, and I just felt like I think I want to work in an inpatient psychiatric unit. And I just like kept getting this like thought in my head. And when I told my family literally said, like, are you crazy? Like you're a tiny girl. Like you can't, they didn't really know much about psychiatric units. My dad had worked in one in a state hospital actually. So those are like, I would say like have the worser patients, or like more chronic patients, like way back in the day he did that. So he was like thinking, one day he got punched by a girl and knocked out cold. So it's like, he's thinking like that's like not safe. Like they were concerned for my safety. And I'm like, but I don't know. And I found in my life that when I get those feelings or those little like, it's like your heart, like you just got to follow your heart. So I just kept getting that. And I was like, so I'm just going to try it. Like, I'll just try it. And if I don't like it, it's not for me, I can always leave. Like, what am I going to do? So I actually went for my first psych, like counselor position interview. I'm not going to say where or anything. And I interviewed, and they gave me a tour, and it was like a jail. And I was like not actually a jail, but it looked like a jail. Like the doors for all the rooms were metal with like a little window with like bars. And it was like, the walls were like those big like concrete bricks, and it was just like cold. There was no artwork on the wall. And I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Like, this is not. So after that interview, I was kind of like, that was not the place I want to work. So I didn't pursue that any further. Then I went for another interview, and they were like, oh, this is like, it wasn't a psychiatric unit. It was like in the emergency room, like you're pretty much like a sitter with the psych patients, which is also not like the safest or what I wanted to do. So I was like, so I was feeling like really discouraged. But then I went for a third job interview, and I was like, oh my God, this is exactly where I want to be. It was like a nice unit. It had like artwork on the walls. Like patients were really getting like therapeutic groups, and you know, they did like yoga daily, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is where I want to work. And I remember the director of the unit was like, you've never worked in a place like this before. She's like, you realize what you're getting into. Like, it looks nice, but there are going to be days people might throw a book at you. People might scream at you. They might call you horrible names. Like, you need to be ready for that. And I just was like, felt in my heart, like, this is where I want to be. So I started working there, fell in love, learned about psychiatric nursing, learned about psychiatric nurse practitioners, and I was like, this is where I want to be. So then I decided to go to nurse school. And then I graduated nursing school, and I wanted to go back to that unit, but that unit, it's like kind of small, and a lot of the nurses have been there a long time. So at the time, they only had openings on night shift, and I am not a night shift person. Like, my circadian rhythm is like much needed. I need my sleep. I'm a morning person. So I was like, oh, maybe, like, I had it in the back of my mind, like I would start off at nights. I really did like working there. But then this other hospital near me opened up like this huge psychiatric unit. And they were looking for new grad nurses because they needed to take so many new grads, so many experienced, you know, because they were expanding. And one of my teachers, was on a committee with the director of the unit, and she had recommended me, and they gave me the hours I wanted, the shift I wanted. So I was like, this is it. And again, it's that whole, like, I believe a lot in following those little like pings, like the universe, like telling you something, you know, you get like this feeling, but then like letting it play out how it's supposed to. I feel like when you push back on things that seem to just be like flowing, that's when, I don't know, I feel like that's when you get like resistance. So this was just like the perfect opportunity. Everything fell into place. So I was like, great. So that's where I'm working now. So that is how I knew I wanted to be a psych nurse. So other things I think people don't realize, or you might not see when you do your psych rotation, because I really think it all depends on the unit. Every unit is different. So if you are doing your psych rotation, like I did my psych rotation at a state hospital, I actually requested to be there because I wanted to see the difference between like the community hospitals and the state hospitals. I had worked at a community hospital. And to be honest, if that was my only experience in psych, I don't think I would necessarily be interested in it. It's just a different dynamic. So, you know, they try, definitely the state hospitals try to offer what they can, but there's not a ton of rehabilitation in state hospitals. So that can be a little discouraging. The community hospitals, you know, you really do see people get better, and then you have repeat people who come back in, you know, but for the most part, you know, you do feel like you're helping and stuff. So that's super important, you know, where you're doing your clinical rotation. If you think that you might be interested in psych, but you didn't have a good psych clinical rotation, definitely still kind of pursue it and see, you know, what other units are like. But it's amazing. And I really hope that if you're interested in psych, you keep pursuing it, because it's a great career, and it really is an awesome field to be working in. So that is how I know I want to be a psych nurse. All right, bye guys.